Hello everyone and welcome back to the Nudgecast. Today we've got a really exciting show ahead. I'm really excited that we have Tony with us from Cummings. Tony, can you say hello and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Tony Waters. I've been with Cummins in the employee benefits area now for about 5.5 years. Prior to that, I had quite a long military career. I come from a military family and I ended up doing 23 years in the army. And during that time, I was involved in payroll. I was an accountant. I worked in HR. I became a quality auditor, and I left as a HR manager back in 2003. Since then, I've had a number of different jobs. I never really found anything that I was enjoying until, as I say, I got to Cummins 5.5 years ago, and I'm an extremely happy employee and hoping to stay here for a very long time.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, you've had quite the career, it sounds, Tony. So it would be really, I think, interesting for the audience, just before we get into a lot of the content on financial well-being, just to get an understanding of what Cummings are, what Cummings do. Give us a sense of the business, if you will.
Yeah, sure. We're a United States-based engineering company. And I guess those that have heard of Cummins will probably have heard of us more in diesel engines, specifically with on-highway engines. So we do a lot of heavy-duty truck and plant engineering. We have plants that recondition diesel engines, as well as make a myriad of different ones. We have a presence, obviously, in the States, in Canada, across Europe, in the Far East, India, China, and within the UK.
Wow, that's quite the geographical spread there, Tony. It'd be interesting to understand then, with that massive geographical spread and engineering background, what are your employees like?
Well, the employees, we have kind of a split in that we have, it's about 50-50, a 50-50 split between what we refer to as the shop employees and the professional employees. Now, I am a professional employee. I work as a manager within a HR field, and I have a laptop and I can work wherever I want to. And that's very straightforward. We understand that. I have access to emails, and anybody who wants to get in touch with me can. About half of our employees are really what the business is all about. They're the people that are on the shop floor doing the engineering, actually being there and working on the sites. And they're the ones, and they don't have laptops. They're working on much more involved and intricate machinery than a straightforward Dell laptop. So these people are the ones that we're not able to communicate with as easily. They're not available to just go and have a Skype chat with them or to drop them an email. Some of our sites across the UK are quite mature. They've been there a number of years. And I guess some of those employees are in the same bracket. So our shop, what we refer to as our shop employee base, are typically older than the ones of us that are sat around in offices all day.
So that must be quite an interesting dynamic then, given the sort of split of the employee base and the older generation you're referring to there, in crafting a people strategy that delivers to all but feels very personalised to the individual. So I guess taking that to financial well-being, which is why we're here today, are you able to really give us any details on how financial well-being has fitted into that people strategy?
Yeah, certainly. we came together in a partnership with Nudge back in the summer of 2015, and we started it by looking at financial health, and one of the pillars of that was going to be financial education, and specifically in terms of our pensions and our retirement plans that we have. So we looked at that and we went, okay, let's look at this from a retirement perspective. And we did that, and we didn't really get immediately a big uptake. There wasn't the talk going round about Nudge as we would have liked at that point. But personally, I put some of that down to the aging population, where people are already getting close to their pension, and they're looking at it and they're going, well, I've been working here for whatever it is, 20, 25 years. I'm going to leave here and I will be getting a pension. And there wasn't a great deal for them to be concerned about, as it were. What we've identified now, though, is that now that we've kind of utilized it more, and we're talking about the other aspects of financial education, not specifically related to the pension, we're getting a bigger buy-in, we're getting more people talking about it. At some point on this podcast, we'll talk about how we at Cummins create a calendar for the year so that these nudges come out, and it's widened the touch of Nudge into many different areas, whether it be house buying, whether it be simple budgeting, and a number of different areas. So in the time that we've been partnered with Nudge, we've had we've seen more and more people become involved in it.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, I think, in the basis that whilst pension might have been the initial trigger, actually now that people are seeing Nudge beyond pensions and using it for all its plethora of tips and tricks and all aspects of money, it sounds like it's getting a much greater appeal, which is fantastic to hear. And, you know, I love your story anyway, Tony, because, you know, as you say, you were one of our early clients. 2015, financial wellbeing benefits were only really just starting out. So it is great that you use the pension as the trigger point, but now Nudge is still delivering and appealing more and more to people as those years have gone on. So, no, that's great. And that brings me really to my next question, which, you know, you're so well versed in this industry, you're an early adopter of Nudge, you are very well placed to give our audience some view on how the financial wellbeing landscape has changed. So would you mind just sharing your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, certainly. I spoke previously just now about pensions and how there's a generation that don't feel as though they need to worry about it. There is now, however, a couple of generations who are having to think about it and make these plans, because none of us here, as the people that are listening to this, we don't have any influence on what the pension, the government pension, the state pension is going to look like when we, or those younger than us in my case, are going to retire. People need to be more involved in the planning of how they're going to live post-retirement. And people are now starting to understand that. But it's not only that, some of the things that have been taken for granted in the past, like the ability to buy a house, this has become more and more difficult. the amount of money that people need to save to put a deposit down on a house now, and the more limited mortgages that are available. It's becoming harder and harder for the younger people to do what was very, very straightforward for me. So people are now understanding that they have to take more responsibility for their own planning. They need to start planning earlier, and that's something that I think we can influence by using nudge, and by using particularly the reward nudges to remind people every now and again of what is available, what they need to be thinking about. Because with the best will in the world, there is so much now that we have to think about, that parts of it will fall by the wayside. And the reminders that we send out using the nudges and the reward nudges are helpful in that respect.
Yeah, and I think just for our audience there, so people know what a reward nudge is, are you able just to explain, Tony, what a reward nudge is?
Yes, certainly. What nudge do is they send out information that is applicable to everybody, and it might be information that's been released in the budget, it might be new changes to legislation, it might be that the interest rate is going up or down, and those kind of things, and they would be sent out. But what we as employers also have the opportunity of doing is creating what's called reward nudges. And reward nudges are things that are specific to our own organisation. And I guess giving a couple of examples might be the best way of explaining it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, well, one of them is if we receive a bonus with incomings this year, we call it variable compensation, but people will understand it as a bonus. If we receive one this year, we will get it at the end of March. We can create by linking in with nudge, we can create a nudge that says, you're going to get variable compensation. You can make that work for you better by having some of that as an AVC paid to your pension plan directly from your salary. You then don't pay tax on that amount of it. So we can do that, and we can send that out and remind people that is something that's available to them. We can also talk about, we can send a nudge out about our share scheme. Very recently, the company increased the company's contribution if people want to buy shares in our own company. We would use a nudge to send that out, and that would be a reward nudge. And we send others out reminding people that their P60 or the P11D is going to come out, and things like that. So there's a lot of different areas that we can do, and it's a very, very good way of telling people what's coming up, what's in the calendar.
That's great. And I guess the interesting thing there is that because your employees have chosen their preferred communication method for the nudges, whether that be WhatsApp, text, or email, a lot of those reward and benefit messages are actually getting through more, and people are reading them. And hopefully, have you seen any positive outcomes from uptake on benefits from using the reward nudges?
We have. What we tend to do when we create our own schedule of reward nudges for the year, we tie that in with what we do in our own newsletters. But the newsletters that we send out, we know don't get to a lot of people. When we used to send these out to email users, to the 50% of our workforce that have laptops, and say, can you share it with non-email users? Lots of them didn't get it. We're now having more people contact us and say, oh, I've just received a nudge about pensions AVCs, for instance, or cycle to work scheme or something like that. And they're asking us questions now based on receipt of a nudge rather than having walked past a newsletter that was pinned on the notice board. So we are seeing more details come through, or more requests come through rather.
Fantastic. And I think that really brings me on to my final question, which is all about outcomes. What have you, if you were to measure the success of Nudge at a business level and employee level, hopefully you've had some really positive feedback, but are you able to share with our listeners just some of the outcomes that you've heard from people on the shop floor, or indeed at a business level, what you guys have achieved?
Well, I think the one thing that it is very obvious is that, and this touches on a little bit of mental well-being, mental health. There are lots of people around. We know, we read the stories. We know that there are people suffering with stress and depression and have got mental health issues, and some of them have it as a result of debt. Now, what we've got is our line HR, because we have 11 different sites around the UK, and each one has its own line HR, and we work centrally. And they're now, in addition to going to our employee assistance program, are telling people, well, have you signed up for Nudge? Have you looked at the website? Have you seen what information is available there? So we've got some of our line HR who are using this for those people. So that's something where, as an organization, we've taken it forward. But also, when I talk about successes, I see it within my own team, or the larger team that we're part of. And when Nudge was first launched, the team that I typically work with are considerably younger than myself, and they didn't really buy into it in those early stages. However, two of them have since bought houses. One of them moved house, one of them bought a house for the first time. And they started using Nudge, and they started looking on, they started going, oh, hold on, this budgeting. And there were so many good ideas that came to them that they hadn't really considered. And the tools that were available to help them think about things. And they now talk, those two in particular, now talk to other people when they go away on our site visits. They can use their own interactions with Nudge and their own experiences, and they talk about it in very complimentary terms and can explain what they've gained from it. And that's really, really close to home for me.
No, I just love hearing those stories, because it really just demonstrates how together, working with you, Tony, and organisations like Cummings, Nudge are really helping people improve their financial health and their relationship with money. Those stories are always just so heartwarming to hear. So thank you for sharing that, and just thank you in general for all of the incredible insights that you've given on the Nudgecast today. I'm sure we're going to get emailed in lots of questions, and you'll be an in-demand man from our audience listeners to come on the podcast again with a follow-up. So just leaves me to say a big thank you from me and everyone at Nudge. Big thank you to our listeners, and just over to you, Tony, to say goodbye.
Right, okay, well, it was my pleasure coming on. Thank you for the opportunity. I guess in leaving, the one thing that I would say is that for any of Nudge's clients or prospective clients out there, start working on these reward nudges. Get involved in them. They are very, very useful. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much, and maybe speak to you again.
Thanks, Tony. Bye, everyone.